listening to another episode of Restaurant Hoppen. I'm your host, Dan Hoppen, and it is an achievement for a restaurant to be open even 3 to 5 years. I mean, running a restaurant in this industry is just really, really tough. And that's why I'm so fascinated to talk to my guests tonight, because they have contributed to keeping a restaurant open for not only 15 years, but it's not only open, it is thriving, it is evolving, it's growing. That is Dante. We've got the owner and executive chef, Nick Strawhecker, and newly coined head chef, Seth Lacey. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Okay, so just because we've got multiple voices here, just if I could have each of you introduce yourself real quick, and maybe tell me what you think, like, if somebody's coming to Dante the first time, what is it about Dante to you that makes it stand out from anywhere else in Omaha?
I guess I'll go first. You know, you get great service, like when you first walk in the door, work with great people. Then you also get to see into Italy without having to drive too far,
Ooh, there's a good
fly
tagline.
too far, whatever. Just keeping things fresh, you know. That's what it's all about. I just hope everybody gets to eat, you know, get to taste Italy through the way we see it.
And how long have you been working for Dante, Seth?
Off and on, we'll call it coming up on 13 years.
Wow. All right. Nick?
Yeah, good description, Seth, for sure. You know, we are wood-fired Italian, Neapolitan-style pizza, extremely seasonal. You know, work with local farmers and producers as much as possible, and all Italian wine list. We only do Italian wine. From the seasonal aspect, we're just now getting to, I think it's both of our favorite season. You know, we're into spring now, and it's, you know, ramps are about to be happening, which is extremely exciting. We buy ramps from one particular person that we call Leslie the Ramp Queen, and she texted me 2 days ago and said we're 2 weeks out from ramps. So to us, that's the beginning of the new season, where we really start to evolve kind of into the rest of the year.
And we will definitely talk more about that seasonality. But first, just in case anybody listening, watching, or here in person has not been to Dante, located in the Shops of Legacy, just off 168th and Center, get there. So we're going to get a lot into food, about the legacy of Dante, about the impression that it's left on the Omaha market. But I want to start with the dynamic between you guys. Seth, you were announced as Dante's head chef in late March, but like you said, you've been with the organization for basically on and off 13 years. And I think it goes back to a meal that you shared there in 2010. I've heard the interesting story of how you kind of got on Dante's radar, but I would love to hear it from you. What was it? How did you get involved at Dante? Let's just go there.
Yeah, very simply, I worked in Lincoln, moved to Omaha to go to Metro, and I was tired of the commute. I probably spent 6 months going back and forth, dabbled in culinary school, and then I was just cruising through neighborhoods eating, drinking in the afternoons, whatever. And I strolled into Dante one afternoon, and the owner was actually bartending, and I sat there and, you know, ate a hand. I could tell that everything was made from scratch, and like just the energy in there on a Saturday afternoon, I was just like sucked in. So I filled out an application, and the owner, are you
talking about Mike LaFurla?
Mike LaFurla, yep. Your uncle.
I was like, are we referring to Nick in the third person?
No. His uncle.
The owner was a real jerk.
At the time, he was kind of in charge of the front of the house or whatever.
Gotcha.
And he slid me the application. He was like, just so you know, we take it very seriously here. And I was kind of intimidated, but in a good way, you know. I was like, all right. And then within 2 weeks, you know, I staged it's where you volunteer to work, and that's pretty much it. Like, it sucked me in. That was like the one thing that sucked me right in, just from that one meal. Just a Peroni, handmade food. I spent probably 3 months just going around town, like finding somewhere that would like pull me away from the status quo in my life, you know. And that's where it took me, just cruising around West Omaha.
Now, you mentioned, you know, you haven't stayed at Dante for 13 straight years, and that's not at all unrare in the restaurant industry. There's a lot of turnover, a lot of movement. People, you know, like to experience different cuisines. They get different positions. But you kept coming back to Dante. What was it about this place that just every time, you know, you would go somewhere else, just like the tractor beam brings you back in?
It's pretty much just the people and mainly the food. Like how it's this no restaurant that I've experienced, because I've gone back and forth, but I haven't really moved across like the states per se. But in town, seasonality is like we print menus every day, and I really don't like being hamstrung by the menu has to be this for 3 months at a time, 8 weeks at a time, whatever it is. It's like every day it's okay to run out of things. Use what's available to you. Everything's fresh all the time. It's okay to run out. And that's basically what I've been drawn back to, is just like how fresh and like every day's a new day.
Constant evolution, constantly changing things, new ideas. That didn't work, that did work. Now we have this asparagus to work with. All right, what do we do with asparagus? I guess we're going to do 6 asparagus dishes, for example. Constantly mixing it up.
Yeah, like he said ramps, like when ramps pop off, this lady that we buy from, she's got ramps tattooed like down her arm, like she's serious about it, and she'll just bring like 20 pounds at a time. And Nick or I will order it, and then all of a sudden you'll have like 20 pounds of ramps, and you can't really visualize how many that is, but that's a lot of ramps, right?
Fills this table.
And you just got to figure a way, and we don't throw anything away. Like very, very rarely things go in the trash, and it's like, what are you going to do to sell that many ramps, for example? So it challenges you. But
yeah, Seth is not kidding. So this is probably close to a year and a half now, but I staged one service at Dante. It was awesome. It was really fun. But yeah, we had a stand-up, and I don't know if this is how you guys still do it, but before dinner service, around 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and the head chef at that time basically was like, okay, how much do we have of this vegetable? How much do we have of this vegetable? How much of this lamb loin do we have broken down? And the menu was like created based off of that, and a new menu was reprinted after that meeting that night. And it was just like, whoa, these guys talk about hyper-seasonal. They're not kidding, which is really, really cool. And we are going to get into that more. But, Nick, I want to talk to you about this partnership from your side. As you're looking for a new head chef, what made Seth the ideal candidate to step into that role?
Number one, we've worked together, the two of us, on the line for not 10,000 hours, but probably near it, a lot. So he knows
Malcolm
exactly.
Gladwell would approve.
Exactly.
That reference just went right over everyone's heads.
I gotcha. The Beatles
over mine.
Yes.
So, a lot of time together. So he knows kind of exactly the expectations. The food style, his food style is very similar to my food style. If I describe something, or we converse about ingredients or a dish, he understands exactly what I'm thinking. So that's a huge advantage. His standards Seth holds very high standards as far as cleanliness is concerned, as far as really all aspects of what we do are concerned. And people, everybody really likes him in the kitchen. He's a good leader. He's calm under pressure. That was a question, right? About
yeah. What's good about this guy?
Yeah.
What does he do well?
Why me?
Yes, exactly.
Well, all those things. So Seth has been. Let's see. So you started in whatever year that was. We decided 2012. 2011. So that was the beginning of. That was the beginning of the rest. We opened in 2009. So back then. It wasn't busy. It wasn't that. It was. We do fine on weekends, I guess. But So he's seen it from both sides. He knows what it's like when we did. When 100 covers was a big night, and now 220 is kind of a normal for weekends for us. Understands the grind. Understands what he's got. He made the lasagna. He made all the lasagna. He makes. How many lasagnas do you think you made in the past 12 months?
12. I honestly would
Maybe
have
1,000
I'd have to
lasagnas.
whip out the calculator. I have no idea. It's a lot.
We sell a lot of lasagna. So Seth makes all of our pasta. Seth comes in at 8 in the morning and basically receives everything from the farmers, from Cisco. Yes, we work with Cisco. Everybody in all sorts of big places. Receives everything, gets the kitchen going, gets stocks going, turns the oven on, gets us ready for lunch, gets the guys organized. As he would say, his favorite time in the kitchen is from...
Yeah, my favorite time is when nobody's there.
Yeah, me too. It's like amazing, the production, and then he works a couple nights a week. But we're trying a new model. Seth has a girlfriend. Seth has a daughter. Since I've had my children, that's become very apparent to me how important it is to put your children to bed, not work 16 hours a day, have 2 days off. We're trying a model that's working very well because we have such a great team. Where Seth kind of gets everything going, kind of guides the ship, does guide the ship of the kitchen, and then passes off to one of our two sous chefs at night who bring it all the way home. And the model's working for us. It takes a great team to be able to do that, however.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I haven't heard many restaurants that employ that model. How long have you been using that? And obviously, you think it's been successful, but what is it about that you think has set the team up for success?
I'll say my thing, Seth. I don't know what you think. The overwork thing is a real problem. What made me really, and it's always been, call it 5 years ago, I was like, oh, that's just what it is. That's just, it's like, that's it. That's what, But then I went to this symposium in Copenhagen 3 years ago or 4. It was right before COVID, and it was in August with the chef from Noma. He puts it on. He's put it on for 5 years. I went to this thing, and one of the chefs from Sweden that was a presenter, Michelin 2-star guy, actually ate in his restaurant in Stockholm a couple days before, and he was talking about how he has 3 chef de cuisines. He's the executive chef because they all have families. They're all in their mid-30s, if not early 40s. I'm 45, so that's a little bit younger than me. And that they take turns on working at night, working during the day, and then they do super extended paternity leave. Obviously, we're talking about Scandinavia, so it's not. But it kind of got me kind of thinking, and we've tried it. It's been going on for 6 months or so.
Yeah,
and it seems to be pretty smooth.
It's all about the burnout in the industry is a real thing, and part of my off and on again does involve some burnout. That's just the way it is, and I think as long as everybody's on board, it's just really nice to keep everybody. The thing about that is you keep everybody fresh. My sous chef, sure, I open, he closes, I get stuff started, he finishes. It doesn't need to be on one person to carry the load. So I think it just keeps everybody more regulated, more normal.
And that keeps the pipeline going, too, because now instead of the sous chef always being the number 2, maybe even number 3 in the kitchen, they're getting a chance to kind of stretch those muscles and, lead a kitchen, which is something you're not going to get as a sous a whole lot of time. So you're just continuing to develop more and more talent, whether somebody needs a night off, whether that person goes to another restaurant, maybe comes back. You just continue to teach more and more. You get your reps.
You don't get, when you get to, for example, Nick's level, you're not gaining anything by just working the line every night, You got to, just pass the torch continually. So that's, yeah. Exactly.
For the longest time, I thought I was the only person that could plate rigatoni bolognese, and let me tell you something, that's not true.
Just put it in the bowl.
Just put it. You can, as Patton said,
carefully, of course.
Carefully, very, very. Patton said, ask people what to do and then be surprised with the results, and that's kind of worked for us the past 5 years. It's kind of been our post-COVID model.
I like it. So there are a couple dishes that I want to get into, but one, we have to start with pizza because that's where Dante started. So Dante, you guys do Neapolitan-style pizza, like you said, comes from the wood-fired oven. Now, you guys were kind of the first ones to usher in the Neapolitan-style era back in 2009. Now there's Neapolitan-style pizza all over Omaha, but you guys were kind of the trendsetters when it came to that. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you're still the only restaurant that's VPN certified. Tell me what that means, and what do you think makes your pizza stand apart?
From other Neapolitan or from other pizza in general?
However you want to take that, probably other Neapolitan, but you can take that question whatever direction you want to, Nick.
Okay, so VPN is an acronym for it's Verace something Napolitano, right? And it could also be called, people also refer to it as Vera, and it's an organization out of Naples, Italy, where Neapolitan pizza is from. The namesake Naples is Neapolitan. That basically regulates whether or not one can call their pizza Neapolitan or not. Now they can't come here and be like, hey, you're going to jail for, it doesn't work that way, obviously, you know what I mean? But in Italy, when you don't have to have this regulation at all, but they just want a standard of the flour you use, the cheese you use, the sauce you use, the kind of oven you use, how you make your dough.
So people can't be, bastardizing and ripping off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as if you know Italian wine, DOC or DOCG, it completely regulates what you can do to be able to get this certification or not. And there's over 1,000 in the world, all over the world, and we are number 325. And so my guy Pepe Mille out of Los Angeles, he's the representative to the United States from Naples. I mean, I did this class. So I'm personally certified, and that was 2008, even before we opened. And then he came to the restaurant in 2010. So the restaurant's certified. It's just another kind of flag in our, that really designates that we're authentic Neapolitan pizza. And then about what was the question about? What's my favorite?
Just what do you think makes it stand out?
What makes our pizza stand out?
Mm-hmm.
Our pizza, if we got on a plane right now and we went to Naples, it is, I mean, there's variations, but it's pretty much going to be the same as in Naples. I mean, and people from Naples will come and say that, or people from Italy will say that. I mean, we do it exactly how.
Sometimes servers will come back and be like, this person at this table said that was better than anything they ate over there. I was like, cool, good. That
always makes me feel good when the Italians come in and say,
good.
I will never forget the first time that Sarah and I went to Forno, which was Dante's sister restaurant in Blackstone for a time.
And Seth was the chef de cuisine there.
Well, thank you, Seth. We had wonderful meals. Yeah. But I remember the first time we went to Forno, she took a bite of the pizza and her eyes got wide, and she was like, because she's been to Italy a couple times, I've not, but she's like, this is the closest I've had to what it was in Italy. And it's just, you just have that airy, chewy crust. It's got like that bubbly exterior, the awesome leoparding on the bottom. I mean, I start drooling just thinking about it. And I want to give a shout out to Jaime, who just is the pizza master. He rocks that oven like no other. And like his consistency is unbelievable. I think of all the times I've been to Dante, I've probably been to Dante 30 times. He's maybe not been there once. Every other time, he's the one at the oven sliding pizzas in and out. And that takes a lot of skill to know how to handle those ovens, to be able to manage the heat, to know where the hot spots are, to know that, okay, this pizza's been...
That's the hardest part.
The hot spots?
Managing the fire.
Okay, tell me about that. Why is that so difficult?
Many different reasons. But the wood, whether or not the wood is... If the wood doesn't burn right, then you have to adjust to the wood. That's one. Another one is, let's say you get a pizza at 3 p.m. and it was not, let's say it's a Tuesday and it was not busy. The fire will burn down. Like, you got to constantly be putting kind of wood on the fire, right? So you got to bring it up fast for that pizza at 3. It's going to be fine. It's going to be tasty, but it's not going to be exactly like a pizza at 7 on a Saturday when the oven is 900 degrees, whereas, the 3 o'clock example, it was, more like 700 degrees.
Yeah, so the oven's kind of taking a nap at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The dough temperature is a huge factor. How old the dough is. There's many different variables with Neapolitan pizza that you got to be aware of. And he's a master. And he's probably. I mean, there's no way that I would love to meet somebody that's made more pizza than him in Omaha, honestly. And yeah, I mean.
Yeah, it's wild.
It is wild. And he's the second guy we hired way back when. And now he runs pizza for Old D.
what has it been for you guys as people who kind of ushered in the Neapolitan style trend, not just in Omaha, but really it wasn't that big in America when Dante opened in 2009, to see it just skyrocket, especially over the last 10 years. I mean, you just see Neapolitan everywhere. As one of the first, what has that movement been like for you?
Let's see. So, I mean, I don't think there was any other Neapolitan here. I think Via Farina would be the second one. And they probably opened 9 years ago, maybe 8 years ago.
Yeah,
and then the past couple years,
2015, I think. Yeah.
And then the past couple years, it's compared to other markets, we have a lot less Neapolitan pizza. Kind of period. And I'm saying markets our size and up. So I moved here to do Neapolitan pizza. I was cooking in Philadelphia in 2006, 7, and 8, and there was this restaurant called Osteria, which was owned by Mark Vetri. He was a very, very, very famous chef out of Philadelphia, and my chef at the time when I was working in Philadelphia was invited to the opening. He took me to the opening. And that was in 2008 maybe, and it was very similar to kind of what Dante is now. And I'm trying this pizza, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to move back to Omaha, and this is what we're going to do. So that was the inspiration at that time, and it was new, very new then in Philadelphia. There were Neapolitan places in New York, and a few in New York and a few in San Francisco, but by and large, that was pretty much it. So yeah, and the idea with Dante was to do pizza, some simple dishes, and Italian wine. And we had bocce back then. I got kind of bored with it, so we kept on evolving. We got rid of bocce, and, we needed that room for seats. And, now it's kind of wild. Now, uni and, people are with these little ovens at home that work pretty well. It's kind of, everybody knows what it means now. Everybody used to say Napoleon-style pizza. Back when I didn't know Napoleon cooks.
That. Yeah. Well, okay. So as a traditionalist, as someone who has this certification, who's spent, you go to Italy every year, and you've spent time out there. What's your take on people just messing around with the uni ovens or Neapolitan style pizza, kind of these variants of the very traditional thing that you've fallen in love with? What's your take on those?
I try to just worry about what's in our four walls. I guess if somebody calls Neapolitan pizza and it's not Neapolitan pizza, it bothers me, I suppose. If they're, if you're going to use an oven you got to have a wood oven. You got to have a wood oven, in my opinion, for Neapolitan pizza. It's a huge part. It's a huge part of the process. They didn't sell gas ovens when I bought the ovens we have for the restaurant because it was sacrilege. I've never seen a gas oven in Italy, I don't think, and in all of my travel. So I think a wood oven. People could, I don't know, just call it pizza. But it ain't Neapolitan. Yeah. I'm a traditionalist with certain things, and that is certainly one of them. When people want to come into somebody else's culture and grab something and make it their own and call it what it's not, it's a complete insult to Italians, for example. That's why they have the VPN thing and, DOCG, because they're trying to keep their beautiful, beautiful things that they've created that have been happening for hundreds, if not thousands of years, pure. But Americans like to come in and call it different things and change it up and make it easier and blah, 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 and then it's like something else completely. My
only thought is as far as VPN, other wood-fired pizza, if you want to distill it down to this place has pretty much the same pizza, it's VPN. This one has some form of that same style of pizza, and that's where we gotta as a restaurant be better at something else, or you know what I mean, push forward in pasta or even
or do pizza,
right? I don't consider. I guess I don't know what I'm trying to say. I guess which isn't good in a situation like this.
Well, let's segue. You mentioned pushing forward in pasta. I want to talk about the other dish I want to talk about tonight is a pasta dish, and that is the dish that the wonderful people who are here at the live podcast got to enjoy, and that is the lasagna bolognese. I mean, you can come into Dante and get a fresh pasta dish. Just, close your eyes, point to the menu. You're going to enjoy that dish. But this is one that has gained a cult following despite only being available really during one season or maybe 2 seasons of the year. It's usually only available one night of the week. I think it's Thursdays currently.
We do it, but we do it for lunch too.
You do it for lunch as well.
Always at lunch, Thursdays, and then big time around the holidays.
And see, I didn't even realize that I was talking to Lasagna Master tonight, the guy who's making them all. What is it about this lasagna, this recipe, that has just allowed it to become so beloved?
Yeah, that's a great question. It just melts. I don't know. If you cook it correctly, it melts in your mouth. It combines the normal bolognese sauce with like the luscious bechamel sauce. I don't know. It's just a guilty filling pleasure. Something very easy to cook. I don't know why it's really taken off as much, because I'm not saying I'm burnt out on it. I love making lasagna.
Sorry to make
I've made a lot. To answer your question, probably just because it's really, really tasty.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, it's extremely traditional.
It's very relatable, like, because everybody, probably everybody here has their mom's version, where you'd buy the long dried pasta, and then it would be very watery. But this thing is more compact and like concentrated in its flavor, and you can tell that everything in every layer has been like handcrafted. That's probably it's hard to ask me, because I've
You're too invested in it. You're too far deep.
My hands are way too dirty as far as why, but I'll still eat it. Just the other day there was a misfire and one came back, and I was like, yeah, I'll eat that.
The lasagna we do, just like the pizza, is extremely traditional. So bolognese means of Bologna. And Bologna is in the region of Emilia-Romagna, so northish, East Italy. It's arguably the most important, I would say, food region in the world. And definitely for Italy, things like grana padano, Parmigiano Reggiano, all sorts of different fresh pasta, lasagna bolognese being one of them. On and on and on. It's not as famous for wine. It's definitely very, very important for food. So simply did what they, it's ragu, fresh pasta, super eggy. So like almost like 1-to-1 yolk to flour ratio. And then bechamel, did I say? And then we finish with tomato sauce, and we do 7 layers of each one. And we finish in the wood oven. So it's nothing like, new, but it's kind of our way. And our bolognese, our ragu is our way. We have a couple things that we do a little bit differently, but generally, if you think about lasagna and then you think about a margherita pizza, it's just like very harmonious. So if the dough is the pasta, the bechamel's the mozzarella, the ragu is the sauce, and the other bits and pieces, it's the exact same ingredients. It's just kind of done a different way.
That's interesting. Now I need
and it works perfect together.
I need a margarita pizza layered now. That'd be interesting. Yeah. Okay, I want to get back to what you were talking about, Nick, when you first opened Dante, and that you wanted it to be a Neapolitan-style pizza joint. You had bocce ball outside. You had TVs in the restaurant, like very different vibe than Dante is now. What made you kind of change that vision? I know you said you got bored, but what
revenue?
Revenue?
Revenue, for sure. Like, we couldn't make... So I was looking at old menus the other day, and we sold margarita pizzas for $13 when we opened, I want to say.
Oh, wow.
Now they're $23. I mean, and a lot's happened in the past 15 years, as we all know, with all sorts of things. Money. It was like we wouldn't survive with the way that I wanted to do things. Like, it had to be... We had to figure out... So definitely I was bored, and definitely I didn't want to do more things, but we definitely had to figure out ways to find revenue and profitability to be able to sustain as a business.
Okay, so what happens when you determine just Neapolitan-style pizza in this casual environment, not going to cut it? We got to figure something else out. How did you pivot?
How did I pivot? Man, I think We used to have weekly meetings way back in the day. You know, Seth referenced Michael LaFurla, my uncle, who is a partner in the business and who, you know, when we opened, ran the front of the house. He's since retired. My dad was very involved in the business. He's an investor. He's an owner as well, but you know, he has his own business. So we would have these meetings on Wednesday, and like, what are we gonna do? In marketing meetings, we talk about different solutions. And you know, my background's all fine dining, so like, I'd never really worked in kind of a casual place like this since the beginning of my career, I suppose. I mean, I came from Michelin place in Italy, James Beard place in Philadelphia and Chicago. So, you know, it was much, much, much higher check averages as opposed to, you know, $23. And, you know, back then the wine list was not as extensive as it is now, not even close, but it was very, very interesting.
I remember when it kind of flipped. Sorry, I'm speaking over you, but I remember when it kind of flipped. We started doing wine dinners.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like when I don't know. I don't want to say we invented a wine dinner because that's not the case at all, you know. But when we started like closing Bocce Ball down to take reservations for like a fine dining seating and saw like the demand, I think that kind of like clicked in our heads. I was like, maybe this could be like a fancy like pizza.
I forgot about that piece. You're totally right. That's like, probably one of the. It's like, oh, this is kind of working. Wow.
Yeah, like maybe we could be a fancy pizza place. You know, it's like why can't you do both at the same time?
Do you guys remember the first wine dinner that Dante put on?
Yes and no. I remember the approximate time frame, but not specifically. No, but
was it like a revelation from day one? Like, oh wow! First of all, like we should have been doing this before, but like this is a potential game changer for us.
Well, yeah. I mean, we've done. Gosh, I don't know how many events over the years. I mean, maybe.
Well, now you do one a month, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll have a bunch of like sub ones. Sometimes we'll do 3. Sometimes, I mean, always with a winemaker. And it's, Seth, you're probably right. That was probably the change. And it was, so we partner with the Italian vine. That's who we buy all our wine from. So all of our wines with them. I've been working with them from the beginning. And so they've really cultivated relationships with different winemakers around Italy. So the Italians have figured out, because of Mark McDonald's connections in Italy, that if they come to Omaha, they'll sell wine. And it's taken a long time. It's taken years and years, but it's like really, really working now. And the first person was probably Nicola Biscardo. We've probably done 15 events with him over the years. I know I'm going to see him 2 weeks actually from today in Verona. And yeah, I mean, I think Seth's right, because you get the ticket sales and then retail wine sales, and the guests love it because Nicola Biscardo for Verona, he owns like 10 different vineyards all over the boot. He's extremely connected and charismatic, knows everything about his wine, and makes it very fun and informal for everybody. And we're like, oh man,
and you get to go off the beaten path with food. You know, on a normal night when you're selling 35 Bolo and like 35 Carbonara, you get to take the same dining room and just condense it down, focus on 4 or 5 dishes. I lost my thought.
Well, it's like you've done we've done many wine dinners together, but like your announcement, you and Juan. So Juan's is our assistant manager and our bar manager, Juan Ramirez. And he's been with us for 2 years, and the next wine dinner is on April 10th, and it's some of Seth's favorite stuff, which is mostly, it's going to work out well spring-wise, and then Juan's favorite vino.
So for anyone who's unfamiliar with what a wine dinner is, it's a coursed dinner, so probably 5 or 6 different courses, a progression going from light and heavy, and then a dessert. And at a wine dinner, each course is paired with a different wine that's supposed to kind of get your palate ready for what you're about to eat. So each of these are very individualized. You'll have a different menu for each one. And like you said, you bring in a different winemaker. That winemaker is going to have their own personality. They're going to have their own personal favorite wines. They could come from a different region of Italy.
Coastal could be from Umbria, right in the middle of the country. Could be. So then and it's only their wine. So then we adjust. A lot of times we'll be like, Piedmontese is an example. If they're from Piedmont, then we do Piemontese type dishes, which is which is easy for us because there's so many and so many great wines. The more challenging ones are the regions that they're more challenging, but then we learn a lot about the region, like Puglia, for example. What are they in Puglia? Oh, wow. And I've never been to Puglia. Let's go down that rabbit hole. Let's read about and see what they're...
You just have to read, and then hopefully something's like, if there's not like there's like some regions that have like a go-to, what they're known for. You end up there, and you kind of just get to like write it.
Yeah.
If it makes sense.
So what does that research look like for you guys? If you, like, for Puglia, for example, I've never heard of that before. If you said...
the heel of the boot.
Okay, that's the heel of the boot. If you told me, like, what dishes are great in Puglia, no idea. So what do you guys do? Are you just Googling, like, Puglia cuisine? Or are there resources that you frequently go to, inspiration you draw from? How does that work?
We use the Google machine for sure, but my favorite is I have this book that is in Italian that is broken up by region on one, and the first part of the book, and then the second part of the book it's broken up by dish, or type of dish. So any pasta, protein, vegetable, dolce. There's probably 10 different sections in that. But it's very, very, it's like Lourdes Gastronomique, if you know what that is, which is like the classical French cookbook that I think it came out in like 1959. It's the same example of that, but Italian. And so you have to like kind of decipher what's going on, but we've been passing that book around for years. I'm a book guy for sure. I have a lot of cookbooks. So we'll do that. And sometimes it will be like springtime and we just decide to do it. You know what, we're going to go off region. Sometimes it just doesn't. Sometimes
it can be region, but you just kind of like force our like Nebraska spring or summer into that hole.
Yeah.
And just make it work, you know.
Well, I think that plays back into the seasonality thing, is in that, you know, obviously Nebraska's seasons are not going to match up perfectly with Italy's ones, so you can't just decide, hey, ramps are super, we keep going back to the example of ramps, whatever, we're going to do it. Ramps are super popular in the Puglia region or whatever, but it's not ramp season in Omaha, so you can't force those two things together. So,
but maybe there's something that we have that works that's similar to that dish, so then we'll do something that's, and then we'll talk about it with you were talking about lineup earlier, and we do it every day where we talk about all the changes in the menu, and Dan and Sarah coming in tonight. We got to take or
that's easy to take care of. Just throw carbonara at them; they'll be happy.
Or any special stuff that we got going on. So then we'll explain like, okay, this is man, we just did a dinner that was like, I really learned a lot from it. I didn't know, and it was Piedmont, and I was like annoyed that we were doing a Piedmont dinner because it's like everybody loves Barolo, Barbera, Barbaresco, me too, it's great, but it's like there's so much other interesting stuff. So there's this sub-region called Gavi on the southern part of Piedmont, and like it's near the coast, near Liguria, which is on the coast, so Genova, where Columbus is from. And it had all sorts of influence between the two because this particular little town called Gavi was owned, like mostly ran by these aristocrats that wanted this particular wine from these. So we went down this rabbit hole with this thing and like learned a ton of stuff, and it was super interesting. And it was like pretty much on point. We had this guy he owns this wine. It was fabulous. And he actually has a restaurant in Houston called Dante, which is kind of weird. But he also has... Yeah. It's just super random, but he has these two vineyards in Italy too, and so sometimes we learn. That's a weird story.
Like they have no business growing white wine there, and then
but it's amazing.
Basically, like he was just saying, like people way back in the day that owned the place were like, I like white wine, so that's what they still do.
We're doing it. Well, and kind of like you said, Seth. Like I imagine this keeps things super fresh for you guys. Not only the wine dinners, but just having to I guess. In particular, the wine dinners, studying new regions, learning new things, but also just constantly having to adapt to what's available to you. And that could even be like it could be ramp season's coming up and you're expecting a delivery from the ramp queen and there's a huge storm the night before and all of a sudden...
Oh, you're totally right.
No ramps, and we got to adjust the menu.
Smoked.
Like, I imagine that just, in that situation, that might be more panic than anything else. But
this is where... Yeah, for sure. Like if like hail came and destroyed all the ramps, that would be a disaster,
Yeah.
But like this is the winter's like the hard time to like plan a menu. Like you got to really get creative with like your onions and potatoes and your carrots,
Lots of mushrooms.
Lots of mushrooms.
Lots of braised meats.
So I really hope the hail doesn't come to your
Yeah, and it's happened. I mean, I mean, we've had a couple storms over the years that completely crushed tomato crops. I mean,
and when tomatoes get destroyed, that destroys peppers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big one.
And we have friends that have closed farms because of a hailstorm. It's like horrible. People always say like, "What's it like? Oh man, restaurant business is so hard." I'm like, "Go be a farmer. It's way, way, way more demanding, I think." But
Okay, we're going to shift this back into the positive because I was trying to take it in the positive direction, and I think I just like torpedoed it.
Not at all.
But just like constantly adjusting that menu, whether it's for wine dinners or whether it's just your traditional menu, yeah, there's going to be staples on there like the rigatoni bolognese, like the chicken and gnocchi. Like those dishes are pretty much going to be on the menu every time you come into Dante.
You got to have your standards.
Yeah, exactly. And those are crowd favorites. You play to them. But if somebody comes into Dante on a Tuesday and they come in on a Sunday, they could see a pretty drastically different menu in those two times. I imagine that's helpful for you guys, not only in keeping diners interested, but in keeping yourselves interested. You're not just cooking the same thing over and over again, not just teaching the same dish to cooks and sous chefs, but being able to constantly have that creativity and stretch a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much like how we just started talking. Like that's what makes it beautiful. Like we have a lot of tons of regulars. I don't know what the percentage is, like if you looked at the actual numbers, but a lot of people come. I feel like there's more than a fair share that come like twice a week. Like
Really?
Yeah, I know for sure there's a family that comes on Sundays, and earlier in the week.
Tuesday nights.
Man, they're living
They
good.
come with their kid on Sunday and without on Tuesday, and they get to see a different. I keep them in mind, but not specifically. I just don't try to think too hard about it. But yeah, for sure, like definitely try to keep it moving.
Thursdays and Fridays are the most robust menu days. That's when we changing. Like Tuesdays, okay, what happened after the weekend? What do we got left? What do we got to sell? And then we start thinking about start thinking about Thursday, Friday, and then Thursday will be the densest. Thursday, Friday will be the densest menu of the week.
Yeah, it's just like a graph. It goes like Tuesday is kind of low, goes up. Like as far as like menu items, menu changes, and then it peaks and starts going down by Saturday night. We start to run out of our specials on Saturday night.
Super full cooler on Thursday and empty cooler on Sunday. Hopefully, that's the goal.
So at what point did you start to adopt that strategy, Nick, when you kind of pivoted out of just pizza but now we're going to what else can I do? I'm bored and we need money. We're going to lean into hyper seasonal. This is a way that can help set us apart. Do you remember when that was or like what the thinking behind that was?
I have every menu that we've ever done ever on the computer, and I'm super curious about that too. Like every single thing is we've kept every single menu. I bet like pretty quick, like 2011 if we opened 2009, if not 2010, because it was bleak for the beginning for sure. 168th Street was as far west as it goes. Now it's like, as we all know, it's just the population density is really kind of filled up. But like that style came from, mentors, chefs that I worked for before me, that very style of printing the menus every day. I mean, it's a luxury to print menus every day. It's very much so a pain usually, but like, there's 2 restaurants there we did that. And sometimes, at those restaurants, we'd reprint menus at 7:00. Sometimes we do at Dante. It's like, oh gosh, we're out of too many things. Let's reprint. Because you hate to tell people you're out of stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, oh, we don't have the scallop dish or the octopus or the crudo, but everything else is good.
Still got bolo.
You know what I mean? You like bolognese?
Can I
More
interest
pizza?
you in the carbonara? I'm interested to get you guys' perspective on this because you've both been in the Omaha restaurant game for quite a while. How have you most seen this restaurant scene evolve in the last 14, 15 years?
How have we most... Okay, I'll tell you what. When we opened 15 years ago, and I keep on saying that, when we opened 15... like, pork belly was like a very much so a... people are like, what is pork belly? You know what I mean? And like Brussels sprouts were like oh, wow. So it's
And now you see those two things together on like every menu almost.
yeah. I was like, it's kind of, so yeah, the restaurants evolved because the people evolved right with it. I think it's, has to do, the internet, and it's very much so global world. I mean, think about the ramen craze. Remember that? Like now there's, it's like, now there's like ramen all over the place. When did, I think we opened a year about after Boiler Room, and Boiler Room, was responsible for a lot of this, accolades for our fair city, accolades, excuse me, and moving food forward in the city, and there's been a lot of places like that. So, and it keeps on getting better, for sure, as far as what we have to offer here, restaurants and vino, and but I think it's the guest education is the most important thing.
As you look at both national trends and kind of what you're starting to see bubble up and percolate in Omaha, what are some trends that you think are coming next?
Oh man,
that could be ingredients, that could be cooking styles, anything, whatever direction you want to take that.
Man, that's tough.
We all follow. I mean,
like he just said, I try to like keep usually like trends kind of work their way. Either it's food or like style or anything. It kind of works its way to the Midwest. I really don't have a good answer for that one. That's a great question.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll tell you one thing for sure is NA booze. It's like the fastest growing segment.
Non-alcoholic drinks, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is an NA beer. We sell NA wine. We have NA cocktails. It is a huge. I mean, younger people don't drink as much as like the 20. People in their 20s don't as much as when we were in our 20s. People are a lot more health conscious. So that's a big piece. Never used to see non-alcoholic cocktails on menus. So people are trying to get very creative with that all over the place. Everything's cyclical too. So like, these, you read about these, like, they'll call them dinner clubs, but like super old school, classical French, classic American, fancy places, trade service, butler type service. I mean, that's kind of happening. I don't know if that's going to happen in this fair town. Might. Clubs are kind of a big thing now. Social clubs with restaurants and bars.
But you guys are not super influenced by the trends. You guys, and you've mentioned it several times, you stick pretty closely to, this is what I learned in Italy, this is what I've seen in Italy, what I've eaten in Italy, this is what we're going to try and stick to. Is there any temptation to modernize recipes or anything? Or what makes you stick so closely to, this is where it came from, this is what we want to represent?
Why is that? That's a good question. Every couple months, somebody will say, hey, why don't you do, French wine or Argentinian wine? It's just what we are. It's kind of our DNA. I mean, like, I couldn't imagine, like, putting wings on the menu or like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just not.
Yeah, nothing too drastic, but that's just kind of like what the rotating menu is for. Like you said, I make, pretty much all the pasta, so I try out different recipes and such. See if people like them, but beyond that,
different types of pasta, not just the dish, but the actual pasta. You'll screw around with that.
The noodle itself.
Like I probably tried 3 different ricotta gnocchi recipes over the past month. Just seeing how people liked them. And that's just one example. I don't know if that really answers your question. How we evolve, I don't know.
No, it does. You're trying new things, trying new recipes.
Yeah.
And ironically enough, the night that I staged at Dante or worked at Dante, wings was the staff meal.
Yes. Once a week we have wings.
I can confirm that they are very good in the wood-fired oven.
Plumper Farm.
Yeah.
David's Wings.
Yeah, that dude, he can make some good chicken wings. Not saying that they should go on the menu anytime soon, but if you ever want to come work at Dante, you might get good wings once a week.
Plum Creek doesn't have enough birds to provide the wings, I don't think.
They don't.
Only 2 per,
Yeah. So I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but in 2017, you opened a second restaurant in Blackstone.
Yeah.
Dante Pizzeria Napolitana. There you go. That evolved into Forno in 2019. Forno, unfortunately, closed during the pandemic. But even as we've come out of it, you haven't tried to open any sister concept or anything like that since. And I've heard from restaurateurs, both who have opened a second one and not had success and have stuck to one restaurant and just said, no, there's no way I'd do a second one. What did you learn about having two restaurants open at once?
The first thing is if everything's going smooth in one place and everything's great and everything's harmonious, there's no way they're both going to be harmonious at the same time. So it's a constant just struggle of that. There's not enough people to work in Omaha. So that's the labor thing is, especially in the hospitality business, especially in restaurants, is extremely difficult. We are very fortunate because we have one heck of a team. But I mean, going back and forth, the amount of wheel time I had. So from 168th Street, Legacy to Blackstone was it's like a hard route. Like, it's super annoying. It was hard to get there always.
We'd make rigatoni out west. I remember one time we put a couple bags of rigatoni in a unmanned Uber down to Midtown.
Oh yeah, it's we have there's nobody to run stuff. Because I just wanted to buy one pasta machine because it was in one ice cream machine. So we'd run stuff back and forth all the time. I think, and the reason, I'll tell you, the genesis for the second restaurant was, I wanted a second. It was for 5 years prior, I was I want a second restaurant. I want to do, blah, 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 blah. I thought it was the only way to be successful to have two, and it's just not. There's a lot of different ways that you could, make more money, be more profitable, have an impact culturally on Omaha. Forno was a heck of a restaurant. It was awesome, but it just didn't work in that place for whatever reason,
I was grateful to practice being the chef of Forno, and I was really proud of it, and just took our lumps, I guess.
It was a heck of a. It just didn't. Yeah, it just. That was 5 years ago, I guess. It closed. Yeah. So we've grown a lot since then, personally, as leaders. But yeah.
Well, and I think that's something that is interesting about Dante, and I would love to get you guys' thoughts on this. I think that there's a balance between a restaurant being able to have its tentpole core personality and things that we're not going to deviate from at all, excuse me. But then there also has to be areas where we're malleable and we adjust to what customers want or what the market dictates or what the workforce dictates or if there's a global pandemic. How do you balance those two things? Just having these are our core philosophies, we can't ever move off of these, but also having the flexibility to pivot in certain areas based off what's happening in the current time.
It's a really good way to frame the question because you have to be fluid. You have to be able to adjust. Or it won't work unless you're a place like this. We have to. But how do you stick to your core identity? And I think that's what it is. We stick to our core identity. The wine thing. I'm rock steady. I only want to do Italian wine. I only want to make pasta in the house. I only want to use this specific type of flour. I only want to cook with wood. It doesn't occur to me to change some of these things that I'm talking about. It just doesn't occur to us.
Yeah,
it's not even on the table. But you in times like a global pandemic, one must adjust, and we adjusted with the help of my beautiful wife and children, and it worked for us. But we still stuck to our core principle of Italian food. It was all the same stuff that we do. It's just in a simpler, weird triage kind of manner. Yeah. Right?
Does that make sense? It does make sense. I wasn't there through the.
You weren't there?
Not in the COVID story. I wasn't. That was one of my absences. Yeah.
That's wild. Yeah, that whole thing was weird, but.
Well,
yes, it was.
I think a lot of it comes down to who is leading that team and who's setting the core principles, and that would be you, Nick. That's what you've done for 15 years. I found a quote from you in a 2019 article in Pizza Today. You said, "My philosophy is to be ultra hands-on, make clear exactly what expectations are, live those expectations yourself every day, show people exactly what you want done, keep on growing and expanding the menu, keep it interesting, and just treat people with respect that you would want to be treated." The restaurant world and the world at large has greatly changed since you uttered those words.
Yeah.
Would you still hold true to those today? Is there anything in there you would add, anything you'd adapt? What do you think?
My younger self was a lot smarter than I thought he was. I don't think there's anything I would change from that statement.
Okay. Then I want to leave you guys with one last question. I mean, we've had Dante for 15 years, and yes, there have been some adjustments, but like we talked about, it's got its core staples, and it's not going to change in certain ways. In your eyes, what do you think it is it's given Dante that stability that in a restaurant world that's constantly changing all the time? Forget the pandemic, but just being in restaurants in general, we saw it when there was that giant freeze at the beginning of this year. I know that there were restaurants that are super popular and packed all the time that because of that 1 week, they were wondering if they were going to be able to pay their employees for the month. Like, this is just such a shifting landscape. What do you think it is about Dante that has been able to keep it so stable for 15 years? That's a long time.
Very long time.
I don't know. The easy layup answer is like our regulars. Like, I remember that cold spell, and we were still they showed up. Like, we were down just like everybody was, but it wasn't a ghost town in there. And these are the same people that come out, rain or shine, just to see what we have to offer. And we wouldn't. I mean, plain and simple, if it wasn't for the guests, then we wouldn't have jobs or whatever, you know. And I don't know. I remember that was brutal. Like, some cooks, cars were like froze, you know, and they couldn't make it to work. But somehow we still managed to get some people in the restaurant that week. And without those people regularly, I guess that would be about it.
I mean, it is a layup answer, but you're right. I mean, it's the guests and it's the team, and we are very fortunate with so many guests that just love what we do, and the reason we have that is because of our great team that believes in what we do, and I mean, anything like with anybody that's been with us for more than a year, like anything I said, like most of the team could have said the same stuff, like because everybody's kind of adopted, and it's a fairly senior team. I mean, we have some new folks, but like, it's like one of my favorite things. We have some younger gents in the front of the house that that probably been with us for 3 years. They were buddies, all went to Millard South, maybe Millard West. There's 3 guys. They're all 19 when they hired, and now they're all 22 or 23. And it's like they didn't know anything about anything with the restaurant. I mean, nothing. I mean, it was like all they could do was run food and like all. But it's amazing how much these specific young men, and really the whole team. I'll during the day, like a lot of times they're lunch servers, and I'll be kind of behind the bar, say getting a coffee. And one of these gents I'm talking about, Abe in particular, will be talking to a guest and describing the menu as good, if not better, than I would describe it myself. So it's the buy-in from the team that loves what we do, and they get it, and then they are hungry to tell others about it. So, guest and team.
How do you beat that? I want to make sure I respect you guys' time. I got to respect the time of everybody in here. So I just want to thank you guys so much for coming out tonight, for bringing all kinds of awesome lasagna, for bringing great conversation, for allowing me to get a little introspective. We didn't just talk about food. I made you think about philosophy and all kinds of deep core values and all this nonsense jargon. So thank you so much, Seth and Nick. I appreciate you guys.
Appreciate it. And thank you folks for coming out.
Omaha, as always, thanks for eating with us.